Jung's most forbidden discovery wasn't about healing the wounded. It was about why certain women become magnets for psychological predators and why this pattern destroys them from the inside out. In his private clinical notes from 1916, Jung documented what he called the empath phenomenon, women with extraordinary emotional sensitivity who could feel others' pain as their own, sense deception instantly, and absorb the psychological atmosphere of every room they entered. But Jung discovered something that made this research dangerous to publish. These women didn't just attract difficult people randomly. They were being hunted by a specific psychological type. Individuals who unconsciously recognized their gift and exploited it with surgical precision. Jung called this discovery forbidden because it revealed a predator-prey dynamic built into human psychology itself. A pattern so consistent, so predictable, that once you see it, you can never unsee it. Today, I'm going to show you Jung's forbidden discovery about empaths, the 4 types he identified in his clinical practice, why each one attracts a different kind of predator, and most importantly, how to break the pattern before it destroys you completely. Because Jung found that this gift either annihilates you or transforms you into something predators can no longer touch. And the difference comes down to one thing: whether you learn to see the hunt before you become the prey. The case that exposed Jung's forbidden discovery began in 1916 with a patient he never named in his published works. A woman in her early 30s who came to him after her 3rd devastating betrayal. Not 3 bad relationships, 3 complete psychological destructions. Men who had systematically dismantled her identity, isolated her from everyone who loved her, and discarded her the moment she had nothing left to give. You probably know this pattern intimately. The charming person who seemed to understand you like no one else ever had, who mirrored your values perfectly, who made you feel seen for the first time in your life. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the criticism started. Your intuition was overthinking. Your sensitivity was creating drama. Your genuine concern for them became proof that you were controlling or needy. By the time you recognized what was happening, you'd already lost yourself completely. Your energy, your clarity, your ability to trust your own perception. Jung wrote in his private case notes, "The patient displays what I term undifferentiated empathic absorption. She does not merely sympathize with others' suffering. She becomes possessed by it. Her psychological boundaries dissolve in the presence of unconscious need." This wasn't mental illness. This was a documented psychological structure that Jung would spend the next decade studying in secret, because what he discovered was too dangerous to publish during his lifetime. Jung realized this woman wasn't attracting predators because she was broken or had low self-worth. She was being targeted because of her gift. Her nervous system was wired to detect emotional pain with the same sensitivity that sharks detect blood in water. And certain psychological types had evolved to exploit that exact sensitivity. Jung wrote, "Just as the wounded animal attracts the predator through signals it cannot control, the empath broadcasts unconscious signals that certain personalities recognize and pursue with instinctive precision." But here's what made this discovery forbidden. Jung found that empaths weren't just passive victims. They were unconsciously participating in their own destruction. Their gift came with a shadow side that Jung called the savior complex, a compulsive need to heal others that overrode every instinct for self-preservation. Predators didn't need to hunt them. Empaths were drawn to predators like moths to flame, unconsciously seeking out the most damaged people in any room because that's where they felt most needed, most alive, most like themselves. Jung observed, she approaches psychological danger with the certainty of someone walking toward their own death, not from weakness, but from a twisted sense of purpose that confuses self-destruction with spiritual calling. This is why every boundary you set crumbles. Why every promise to yourself never again dissolves the moment you sense someone's hidden pain. You're not weak. You're not codependent. You're operating with a psychological structure that Jung identified as simultaneously your greatest gift and your most lethal vulnerability. But there's something even more disturbing that Jung discovered. Something that explains why the pattern keeps repeating no matter how much awareness you gain. Because Jung observed that not all empaths attracted the same kind of predator, he identified 4 distinct types within the empathic structure, each with a different vulnerability, each hunted by a different psychological predator. Understanding which type you are isn't just interesting psychology, it's the difference between finally breaking the pattern and repeating it for the rest of your life. Type 1. The feeling empath. Jung documented women who combined what he called introverted feeling with extroverted intuition. These empaths don't just sense emotions, they absorb them completely. Walk into a room where someone is silently suffering, and within minutes that suffering becomes theirs. They can't distinguish between their own emotional state and what they've unconsciously absorbed from everyone around them. Jung wrote, "The feeling empath lives in a state of perpetual emotional contagion. She feels the unlived grief of her mother, the suppressed rage of her partner, the collective anxiety of her workplace. She becomes an emotional processing plant for everyone she encounters." Jung observed that feeling empaths attract what he called the emotional vampire, individuals with borderline or histrionic structures who create constant emotional crisis. Why? Because these predators have discovered that feeling empaths will absorb and process emotions they refuse to feel themselves. The predator creates chaos. The empath absorbs it. The predator feels temporary relief. The empath becomes addicted to being needed. The cycle intensifies until the empath is completely depleted. Jung noted, "She mistakes her depletion for love, her exhaustion for devotion. The predator mistakes her absorption for unconditional acceptance. Both are caught in a death spiral neither consciously chose. You're the friend everyone calls during their crisis, the partner who handles all the emotional labor, the daughter who absorbed your family's unspoken pain. You've probably said, 'I don't know why I'm crying,' or 'I don't know where this anxiety came from.' That's because it's not yours. You're carrying emotional content that belongs to everyone around you." Type 2. The cognitive empath. Jung identified women who combined introverted intuition with thinking function. These empaths see patterns rather than feelings. They can predict how relationships will end months before anyone else notices problems. They recognize behavioral patterns that reveal character with startling accuracy. Jung wrote, "The cognitive empath possesses what appears to be prophetic ability. In reality, she is reading unconscious patterns with the precision of a psychological algorithm. She sees the conclusion before the story has finished writing itself." Cognitive empaths attract the covert narcissist, individuals who operate through manipulation disguised as vulnerability. Why? Because cognitive empaths are the only type who can initially see through their facade. And covert narcissists are unconsciously drawn to the challenge of deceiving someone who sees everything. It becomes a game. The predator presents as wounded and misunderstood. The empath's gift says danger, but her savior complex says this person just needs to be understood. Jung observed, "She knows with absolute certainty that she is walking toward destruction, yet she proceeds anyway, convinced that her clarity will protect her. It never does. You knew something was wrong from the beginning. Your intuition screamed warnings you rationalized away. You probably said, 'I see their potential,' or 'they've just been hurt before.' You convinced yourself that seeing clearly was enough to protect you. It wasn't." Type 3. The somatic empath. Jung documented women who experienced others' psychological states as physical sensations in their own bodies. These empaths feel someone's suppressed anxiety as tension in their own chest. They experience another person's unexpressed grief as heaviness in their own body. They literally embody the unconscious contents of everyone around them. Jung wrote, "The somatic empath serves as a physical barometer for psychological weather. She feels the coming storm in her body before others recognize clouds gathering in their minds." Somatic empaths attract the psychosomatic manipulator, individuals who unconsciously use physical illness and weakness to control others. These predators have learned that somatic empaths can't ignore physical suffering. They weaponize their own bodies, creating genuine illnesses and symptoms that keep the empath trapped in caretaker mode. Jung noted, "The predator's body becomes a prison for the empath's compassion. She cannot leave someone who is physically suffering, even when that suffering is unconsciously weaponized against her. You've stayed in relationships because they needed you. Their migraines, their chronic pain, their mysterious illnesses that only you could soothe. You probably said, 'I can't leave them when they're sick,' or 'who will take care of them?' Your body absorbed their symptoms. You became sick trying to heal them." Type 4, the pure empath. The rarest and most dangerous type Jung encountered. Pure empaths combine all three previous types without the psychological structure to organize what they're receiving. They feel everything, see every pattern, embody every sensation, but can't distinguish between their own experience and absorbed content. Jung wrote, "The pure empath exists in a state of perpetual overwhelm. She is a receiver with no filter, a vessel with no boundaries, an open wound in constant contact with the world's pain. Pure empaths attract the cluster predator, individuals with severe personality disorders who destroy systematically and completely. Why? Because pure empaths have no psychological defense system. They're completely exposed. And certain predators recognize this vulnerability with predatory precision." Jung observed in his most disturbing note, "This type either individuates rapidly through crisis or suffers complete psychological annihilation. There is no middle path. The gift is too powerful, the vulnerability too extreme. You've experienced a relationship that didn't just hurt you, it nearly destroyed your ability to function. You lost your identity completely. You couldn't recognize yourself. You probably said, 'I don't know who I am anymore,' or 'I can't trust my own mind.' That's because you were possessed by someone else's unconscious contents so completely that your own personality dissolved. Now you understand which type you are, but knowing your type isn't enough, because Jung discovered something even more forbidden, the reason awareness alone never breaks the pattern, and why most empaths remain trapped in this cycle until it destroys them completely." Here's what Jung discovered that made this research too dangerous to publish during his lifetime. Empaths don't just attract predators, they're addicted to them. You've probably noticed this pattern in yourself. The healthy, stable people who genuinely care about you feel boring, flat, like there's no depth, no intensity, nothing to do. But the moment you encounter someone who's damaged, chaotic, clearly dangerous, your entire system comes alive. You feel purpose, clarity, like you finally found someone who needs what you have to give. Jung wrote, "The empath experiences herself most fully in the presence of psychological danger. She comes alive precisely where she should retreat. This is not accident, this is addiction." Jung identified what he called the wounded healer complex in empaths, a shadow structure that needs others to be broken so you can feel whole. Think about it. When someone is healthy and self-sufficient, what role do you play? Where does your gift fit? How do you prove your value? But when someone is suffering, desperately needing exactly what you can provide, suddenly you have purpose, identity, a reason to exist. Jung observed, "She doesn't love the person. She loves being needed by the person. The moment they heal, she loses interest or unconsciously sabotages their progress. Because a healed person has no need for a healer. This is why you keep attracting predators. Not because you're broken, but because your shadow needs them. Healthy people trigger your deepest fear, that without someone to save, you're worthless, that your gift has no purpose, that you have no identity beyond being needed. So your unconscious mind seeks out the most damaged people it can find. Because with them, you'll never run out of purpose. You'll never have to face the terrifying question, who am I when I'm not healing someone? Jung wrote in his most disturbing passage, the empath fears her own wholeness more than she fears abuse, because wholeness means confronting the void where identity should be. This is why every therapeutic insight, every boundary-setting workshop, every book on narcissistic abuse hasn't worked. You're not trying to escape predators. You're trying to manage your relationship with them while keeping the addiction fed. Real freedom would require facing something far more terrifying than abuse. Facing yourself when there's no one left to save. But Jung found something that changes everything. A way to break the pattern that doesn't require becoming someone different. It requires becoming whole, because there's a version of empathic gift that predators can't touch. A transformed relationship to your sensitivity that makes you psychologically untouchable. Jung called it the integrated empath. And the transformation process is nothing like what you've been taught. Jung developed a protocol for empaths that he never published in his mainstream works, a process so psychologically demanding that he only taught it to patients who had suffered enough to be willing to face complete ego death. This isn't about boundaries, it's about becoming someone predators no longer recognize as prey. Phase 1, the shadow confession. Jung's first step was brutal, forcing empaths to admit they needed their predators, not wanted, not accidentally attracted, needed. He made patients complete this sentence daily. I seek out damaged people because the real answers were devastating. Because being needed is the only time I feel valuable. Because fixing others is easier than facing my own emptiness. Because their chaos is more comfortable than my own inner silence. Because I'm terrified of who I am without someone to save. Jung wrote, until she admits she hunts predators as much as they hunt her, she remains prey. The confession of mutual need breaks the victim identity that keeps the pattern alive. Journal this question daily. What am I avoiding in myself by focusing on their damage? The answers will destroy you. That's the point. Your false identity must die before your true self can emerge. Phase 2. Energy reclamation. Jung discovered that empaths had spent so long absorbing others' content that they had no idea what their own authentic energy felt like. He developed what he called the solitude trial, 30 days of zero emotional caretaking, no processing others' feelings, no advice giving, no empathic engagement, just ruthless, uncomfortable silence with your own inner experience. Jung observed, the first week, she experiences withdrawal symptoms identical to drug addiction, anxiety, restlessness, compulsive urge to check in on others. This is the addiction revealing itself. Week 1. Panic. The compulsion to reach out, fix, soothe others feels unbearable. Week 2. Anger. Rage at how much of yourself you've given away. Fury at those who took it. Week 3. Grief. Devastating sadness for the years lost, the self abandoned, the life unlived. Week 4. Void. Terrifying emptiness where identity used to be. Jung wrote, only by passing through the void does she discover what exists beneath the compulsion to save others, herself. 30 days of radical solitude practice. No emotional processing for others. No advice. No how are you really doing conversations. When someone brings you their pain, you say, I trust you to handle this. Spend 20 minutes daily in complete silence asking, what do I actually feel right now? What's mine versus what I've absorbed? Jung noted, the empath will initially feel selfish, cruel, wrong. This discomfort is the addiction screaming. Sit with it. The person you fear becoming, cold, unfeeling, selfish, is simply someone with healthy boundaries. Phase 3, the predator recognition training. Jung developed a ruthless protocol for recognizing predators before empathic absorption begins. He taught patients to watch for what he called the empathic hook, specific psychological moves that predators use to bypass conscious discernment and trigger compulsive caretaking. Hook 1. The instant intimacy. They share deep trauma or vulnerability within the first conversation. This isn't authentic connection, it's a test. They're checking if you'll absorb their pain and make it your responsibility. Jung wrote, healthy individuals build intimacy gradually. Predators create instant intensity to trigger your savior complex before your discernment activates. Hook 2. The unique understanding. You're the only one who really gets me. Everyone else has abandoned me, but you see who I really am. This triggers your addiction to being special, needed, irreplaceable. It's specifically designed to make you feel chosen while isolating you from everyone who might provide reality checking. Jung observed, the empath mistakes being uniquely needed for being uniquely loved. The predator knows the difference. Hook 3. The promised transformation. I've never met anyone like you. You make me want to be better. I'm going to change because of you. This activates your wounded healer complex. They're offering you the ultimate drug, the chance to be someone's salvation. Jung noted, they promise transformation they have no intention of delivering, but the empath becomes addicted to the possibility, not the reality. The predator need never change. The promise alone keeps her hooked. Hook 4. The manufactured crisis. Just when you start to establish boundaries or gain clarity, suddenly they're in crisis, health emergency, financial disaster, suicidal ideation. The crisis is real, but it's also strategic. They've unconsciously learned that crisis is what keeps you engaged. Jung wrote, the predator's unconscious creates genuine emergencies, precisely when the empath begins to escape. This isn't manipulation in the conscious sense. It's the predatory instinct ensuring the food source doesn't disappear. When you meet someone new, watch for these patterns. Do they share trauma before you've earned that trust? Do they position you as uniquely capable of understanding or saving them? Do they promise transformation contingent on your presence? Do crises emerge precisely when you create distance? If yes to 2 or more, you've encountered a predator. The question isn't whether they're dangerous, it's whether you're still addicted to danger. Phase 4. The power reclamation. Jung's final phase was the most dangerous, teaching empaths to weaponize their gift instead of being victimized by it. He wrote, the integrated empath becomes what I call the conscious mirror. She sees everything, but she no longer absorbs. She reflects people's unconscious contents back to them with surgical precision. The predator attempts hook 1, instant intimacy. The unconscious empath absorbs the trauma and makes it her mission. The integrated empath says, I notice you're sharing something very personal very quickly. That's interesting. What are you hoping will happen by telling me this? The predator immediately feels seen. Not in the warm, accepting way they're used to, but in a way that exposes the manipulation. They either retreat or escalate. Either way, you've maintained your boundaries. Jung observed, when the empath learns to reflect rather than absorb, she becomes psychologically dangerous to predators. They can no longer feed. Most will unconsciously move to easier prey. This is the integrated empath Jung described in his private notes. She still sees everything, but she's no longer destroyed by what she sees. She still feels deeply, but she distinguishes between her emotions and absorbed content. She still has the gift. but she's no longer addicted to using it. She can sense predators instantly, and she walks away without needing to save them. Jung wrote, "The integrated empath is no longer prey. She is transformed from wounded healer to conscious warrior. She offers her gift strategically to those worthy of receiving it, without sacrificing herself in the process." But Jung warned of one final danger, a test that comes precisely when you think you've completed the integration. Jung documented a pattern that appeared in every empath who successfully completed the integration process: the return of the predator. Just when you've done the work, set the boundaries, reclaimed your energy, become psychologically untouchable, they come back. The ex who destroyed you, now transformed. The friend who betrayed you, now enlightened. The family member who drained you, now finally understanding. And they don't come back with manipulation. They come back with genuine change, or what appears to be genuine change. Jung called this the integration test, the unconscious mind's final check to see if you've truly transformed or simply created better defenses. He wrote, "The predator returns precisely because your energy has changed. You're no longer broadcasting victim frequency. You've become something else. And the predator's unconscious recognizes this transformation and attempts to feed on it differently. Because now they're not offering you the chance to save them. They're offering you validation for the work you've done. You were right about me. I was toxic. But I've done the work now. I see what I did. You're the only person who truly understood me, and I threw that away." This triggers a different addiction. The need to be proven right, the need for your pain to have meant something, the need to see the transformation you always believed was possible. Jung observed, "She survived the predator's darkness, but she cannot survive the predator's light, because the light confirms her deepest fantasy, that her love could save them, and that fantasy will destroy her faster than any abuse." The integrated empath must do something that seems cruel, even evil. Reject the transformed predator, not because they haven't changed, they might have genuinely changed, but because accepting them back, even their transformed version, means centering your life around someone else's journey again. It means your worth is still tied to their transformation. It means you're still defining yourself through your impact on damaged people. Jung wrote in his most brutal passage, "The integrated empath must be willing to let the predator complete their transformation without her. She must choose her own wholeness over the validation of watching them heal. This is the final death of the savior complex. When the predator returns, transformed or not, you say this: 'I'm genuinely glad you're doing better, and I'm no longer available to be part of your journey.' No explanation, no processing their feelings about your boundary, no helping them understand. Just the simple truth. You've chosen yourself," Jung observed. Most empaths fail this test. They mistake the predator's transformation for their own happy ending. They don't realize true integration means you no longer need anyone's transformation to feel complete. Those who pass this final test become what Jung called the sovereign empath. And this is where your gift transforms from curse to genuine power. Jung wrote about a patient who completed the full integration process. After 3 years of ruthless inner work, she returned to my practice. But she was unrecognizable, not in appearance but in presence. She had become what I call psychologically sovereign. The sovereign empath possesses all 4 types of perception. She feels others' emotions, feeling empath. She sees behavioral patterns, cognitive empath. She senses somatic truth, somatic empath. She accesses the full spectrum, pure empath. But now she has what Jung called the container, psychological structure strong enough to hold what she perceives without being consumed by it. Jung observed, she can walk through a room full of suffering and remain herself, not because she's closed her heart, but because she's learned to be a clear mirror rather than an absorbing sponge. Power 1. Selective engagement. The sovereign empath no longer gives her gift to everyone. She chooses consciously who receives her perception, her energy, her depth. Jung wrote, "She understands that her gift is valuable precisely because it's rare. She offers it strategically, to those who will honor it, not to those who will exploit it." When someone asks for her empathic engagement now, she asks herself, is this person doing their own work, or are they trying to make me do it for them? If it's the latter, she walks away without guilt. Power 2. Weaponized clarity. The sovereign empath has learned to use her perception as a weapon when necessary. She can reflect someone's unconscious manipulation back to them with such precision that they're forced to see what they're doing, not to punish, but to establish immediate boundaries. Jung noted, the integrated empath's clarity becomes her protection. Predators cannot survive in the presence of someone who sees them completely and refuses to absorb their projections. When a predator attempts to manipulate now, she doesn't absorb, argue, or explain. She simply names what she sees. I notice you're creating a crisis precisely when I set a boundary. That's interesting. The predator retreats. Every time. Power 3. Identity independence. The sovereign empath has discovered who she is without someone to save. Jung wrote, "She has passed through the terrifying void and found herself on the other side. She no longer needs others' brokenness to feel whole. This is true liberation. She has hobbies that have nothing to do with healing. Relationships based on mutual joy, not mutual need. A sense of purpose that exists independently of fixing others. She's bored by drama, unmoved by manipulation, uninterested in potential. She engages with reality, not fantasy." Power 4. Legacy creation. The sovereign empath transforms her gift from personal burden to cultural contribution. Jung observed, once she has integrated her own shadow and established sovereignty, she becomes what humanity desperately needs. Someone who can see clearly, speak truth, and hold space for transformation without being destroyed by the process. She becomes the therapist who doesn't absorb clients' trauma, the teacher who can hold students' pain without taking it home, the friend who can witness suffering without making it her identity. Jung wrote, "She has transformed from wounded healer to conscious healer, from prey to warrior, from victim of her gift to master of it." Here's what sovereignty actually feels like. You can walk into a room full of suffering and feel compassion without compulsion. You can see someone's pain clearly and choose not to fix it. You can recognize a predator instantly and feel nothing. Not fear, not the urge to save them, not even anger. Just clear recognition and immediate distance. You can be alone without feeling empty, needed without feeling trapped, powerful without being cruel. Jung's final note on his patient. "She came to me 3 years ago on the verge of suicide, destroyed by her third predatory relationship. Today she works with battered women, teaching them what I taught her. She has transformed her wound into medicine, but more importantly, she has found herself beneath the wound." This is Jung's forbidden discovery about empaths, fully revealed. You were never broken. You were operating with a gift you weren't taught to integrate. The predators weren't stronger than you. You were addicted to being prey. The pattern wasn't fate, it was unexamined shadow. And now you have the complete map from prey to predator to sovereign power. Jung spent decades documenting this pattern in secret because he knew the truth would be too confronting for most people to accept. Empaths aren't just victims of predators, they're unconscious participants in a shadow dance that keeps both sides trapped. But here's what Jung believed with absolute certainty. This gift either destroys you or transforms you into exactly what the world needs. Someone who can see everything, feel deeply, hold space for transformation, without being annihilated by the process. You are not too sensitive for this world. You're exactly what consciousness evolution requires, once you learn to wield your gift with the sovereignty Jung described. If you recognize yourself in Jung's description of the empath who attracts predators, comment which type you are. Type 1, feeling empath. Type 2, cognitive empath. Type 3, somatic empath. Type 4, pure empath. Your integration journey connects with others walking the same path. You're not alone in this transformation. If this revealed something you've never seen before about your pattern with predators, hit that like button. You've just taken the first step towards sovereignty. Subscribe for more of Jung's forbidden discoveries about psychological patterns that nobody wants you to understand. Now you understand Jung's forbidden discovery about empaths and predators. You see the pattern. You know your type. But there's something I didn't tell you at the beginning of this video. Everything we just covered about attracting predators is only half the story, because Jung also identified what he called the empath's shadow predator. The moment when empaths themselves become the psychological threat to others. And if you don't understand this reversal, you'll transform from prey to predator without even recognizing what you've become. Click this video right here to learn the 4 signs you've crossed from wounded healer to shadow predator, and how to reclaim your gift without becoming what you feared most. I'll see you there.